Hey, what's up, everybody? So today we're going to be working on the Mechanics Creeper version 2.0. So we're going to do something a little bit different today, and same concept, different material, and we're going to go about the manufacturing process a little different. We're going to definitely use some heavier gauge stuff. So I've already got it measured out. We're using 1x2 rectangle tube. This is 1/8 inch thick or 0.1250. So we got 30 inches measured from that end to that line. I'm going to lop that off. And what I did was I took these wheels, put them right there. I got my spacing between them. This is 15 inches on center. And then we got the part where we're going to drill the hole in both pieces to put the bolts slash axles through. And what I'm going to do is once I cut off this excess over here, I'm actually going to stack these two on top of each other and tack weld them together. Make sure they're all lined up, tack weld them together. And then what we're going to do is take it over here to the drill press, and we're going to drill the axle holes through both tubes at the same time. So, and we're going to use the tombstone today, the DIY welding project pedestal that I made, multi-tool workstation. So I'm pretty excited about that. So we'll get to see that in action, and it's pretty sweet. So let me get the camera set up, and we'll get to it. All right, we got our equal lengths cut out, 30 inches long. Now, like I said previously, I'm going to stack these together, this one on top, and I'm going to drill these holes at the same time through both pieces. And then once that's done, we'll take a flap disc and we'll clean all this rust off and deburr the edges. So in the meantime, we'll get this situated and we'll be right back. All right, so we got 3 tack welds on. We're using the Art Captain MiG 145 Pro. Our friends at Art Captain were nice enough to send us this machine, as well as the Art Captain 165 Pro stick welder. Both of these machines will do stick welding, and this one will TIG also. We're going to flip this over, put 3 more tacks on, just to make sure. We got no movement. All right. And like I said, this is a flux core welder. So we're running 035 wire in that. And at 100 amps on this, like I said, just tack weld to hold it together so I can drill it. I forgot to do one thing. Bow lube, developed by Boeing. Anyway, it's a nice little cutting paste. Helps cut and keeps your bit cool. So real quick, I want to show you a couple of add-ons I put on this thing. And this magnetic tray is one of them. Pretty sweet for holding drill bits, extra tools, cutting lube, center punch, whatever, or even sweeping your chips down into it. Another thing is this magnetic power strip. It's got 5 110 volt plugins and 2 USB. So you can either screw that in, or it's got 2 magnets, same magnets on the back of this. 33 bucks at Harbor Freight, and I think this was $12 or $14 at Harbor Freight. So highly recommend. Makes this thing pretty sweet. Anyway, enough about the tombstone. We're going to get back to this. I'm going to cut these tack welds off, and then we're going to individually waller these holes out with a much larger drill bit, because these are a 5/8 shoulder bolt, because that is a 5/8 hub. Alright, so we got this frame tack welded together. We're not going to fully burn it in just yet. That way if I need to break something loose and readjust something, it's a lot easier. So I'm going to put a cross brace in, dead center across. So everything you see right here on this frame is 1/8 inch thick material. The rectangle tube and the angle iron. So the rectangle tube is 2 by 1/8 inch, and the angle iron on each end is also 2 by 1 inch, 1/8 inch. And so for the cross bracing, what I got here is 2 pieces of 3 inch wide, 25 inches long, 1/8 inch flat bar. So luckily I had this flat bar left over from a failed attempt at something. And so what I did was, it had some bends in it. So what I did was I measured it to the 25 inches, cut the flat piece out, and then the other piece had a good radius bend in it. So what I did was I took this. Can never go wrong with a classic. And I laid it out on the concrete floor and I beat that turd flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to weld those 2 pieces of flat bar together, because it's kind of springy along that gap. So what we're going to do is weld the 2 pieces together, and if my math is correct, that'll make it 3/16 thick. But math is hard. Having fun is more important. So anyway, I'm going to get these welded together, and then I'm going to tack them in, get my measurement to get dead center, which it should be 15 inches in the top to bottom. So get these tacked together, and then we will get our measurement and we'll get it tacked in, and we'll see how springy it is. Alright, so we got these 2 pieces of 1/8 inch flat bar welded together. Got it welded in 3 places. They're not tacks, so stitch welded it opposite sides, so on and so forth. Anyway, so halfway from this outside corner to that outside corner is 14.5. So we got her there. So now we're going to tack that in and flip her over. Take a look at everything, double check everything. We're probably going to test fit the wheels, make sure everything fits proper, and we'll show you what we got going on. Let me get this set up. And we are using the flux core welder. I got it, I should use it, you know. That, and I'm out of gas for my MIG welder, so maybe in my next video we will TIG weld something. We got our corners tacked in. Whole thing's tacked in. I'll be honest, I personally don't think the flex core welds better than the MIG, but also this is a different machine and it feeds differently. It's not as smooth. Oh yeah, there's very little flex here, which is perfect. So let's get some wheels mounted up. All right, 5/8 grade 8 hardware. Don't forget your flat washers. They got a 15/16 head. I don't have a 15/16 box end, but I got an all 16s. Get you an all 16s if you ain't got one. Now this is just a mock-up, but I am gonna have to get a little bit longer bolts. Probably what we'll end up doing is getting a bolt that's an inch longer and then cutting off the excess. So this is version 2.0 of this. Now I don't know if you remember in a previous video, I was building a mechanic's creeper for my dad, and this one just didn't work out. These two pieces were originally one piece, and I lopped off that, but this was just too flimsy. So 1-inch 16 gauge square tubing, 3/16 by 1 inch flat bar, and that's what all this is too. But the problem is when you put weight on it, these on both ends, you know, just imagine when you put your weight in the middle, they would bend in, and then this bottom cage would bottom out on the ground. So version 1.0 will just get cut apart, and I'll use the bits and pieces for different miscellaneous stuff as I need. You know, I got a bucket full of scrap down there. I got a bucket full of scrap back there behind the welder cart. So don't throw your scrap away unless it's just absolute trash, but a lot of times you'll find a new use for it. So, but anyway, I think this thing's turning out pretty nice. So I'm going to put my weight on this. It doesn't flex, and I'm not a small boy, 6'5", 330 pounds. So I think that's going to work out. Yeah, bud. We're going to slap a piece of plywood in there, put some weight on it, and then not a whole lot, but just like I said, we're mocking up, and then we'll burn everything in, and like I said, we'll get some longer bolts. Alright, so we got this thing fully welded up now, and this is what it looks like. Pretty much looks like it did earlier in the video, except we're welded in. All the corners are secure. So now what we got to do is we got to get some longer bolts, some longer 5/8 bolts, and then we're going to get a piece of plywood, and we're going to notch it out so it'll clear the nuts for the axle bolts. And then we're going to get some foam and a stapler and some vinyl. Got to pick out a vinyl color first, but and then build a little bit of a headrest. And this thing will be done. Oh, and paint. Still haven't decided on what color I'm going to paint it. Depends on what kind of vinyl, what color vinyl I go with. So we'll get that going. Let me get this set up. Alright guys, so now that we got the fab work done on the main frame and got everything mocked up, this is what we got going on now. This is a sheet of 18 gauge sheet metal. I got one strip cut out. Obviously it's got some blemishes. That's alright though. Anyway, we're going to cut another one out that size, and we got it drawn out, and we're going to use, where did I put it? Over here. We're going to use some angle iron as a guide because I don't have a steady hand like that, but we're going to use the plasma cutter, Arc Captain Cut 50. This thing works pretty sweet. So let me get the camera set up and we'll get this going. Now what I like to do is, I should probably put a caliper and see what size diameter that is. Anyway, what I like to do is do a test run against my guide to make sure the center of the nozzle is going to be center of that black line. Nah, I cut it crooked. Oh well, it doesn't matter. It's gonna get bent up anyway. Alright folks, so this is gonna be my first attempt at building a Fender. Never done it before, so this might work, it might not work, but we're gonna find out. So bear with me, and we'll see what happens here. I got my line drawn out, but I'm going to double check the measurement on it to make sure it's an inch in all the way. Follows the inch mark. Alright, I'm going to pull this rack off and I'm going to get my sheet metal brake set up and we'll check it out. Well, turns out my sheet metal brake I was excited to use, this piece is too long for it, so we're going to do it the manual way. This isn't about getting it right or getting it wrong right now. It's about learning. I bought these at Harbor Freight. Never used them before, so I figured I'd give them a try. And if it doesn't work, we can always break this edge with a hammer. So I'm just doing this with hand tools. I don't have a hydraulic sheet metal bender or a pull max or a shrinker stretcher. I'm doing it with pliers, tools that I built, like the sheet metal brake you saw earlier, that the jaws on it aren't long enough or wide enough for this length of sheet metal. So what I got is, I'll show you here. I got this hammer and dolly kit off of Amazon. I don't remember what it cost, but I think it was 45 bucks, somewhere in that ballpark. Anyway, I've used it very little, a handful of times here and there, but anyway, it works pretty decent. Clamps, and as you can see, we got the edge broke over. There's a couple little valleys in it, little whoops. So what we'll end up doing is unclamping it, and we'll check it out and see how straight the other side is, how it looks, so on and so forth. And then we'll put these against some flat stuff, or one of the dollies rather, and we'll smooth that out. So I got these at Harbor Freight. I think they were like 20 bucks ish. Each one of these little notches is a 1/4 inch, so 1 inch max. I did most of the initial bending with that, so we will let's fix the camera here. Sorry about the crappy camera work. We'll pull this off and check it out, and we'll go from there. Alright guys, so I got my lip formed. I got a little bit of a tuck right there. I'm gonna have to hammer that out, but I got my self-explanatory top of the wheel, center in between the wheels. Got my instructions I made to remind myself what I'm doing, and I got it kind of formed over, but after going back out there, I'm actually going to cut this square off and this square off, because I don't think I'm going to need it, and it's going to make it easier to bend this. So and if I do need them, I can always form these up and then weld them back together. So I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to cut it off, because I really just need between this line and that line for the fender. So because this panel is already longer than the frame that I'm putting it on, but I always want to leave a little bit of extra room in case I short myself. But now that I'm getting this far into it, it's looking like I'm not going to need that. So we'll cut that off, and we'll get back to bending on it. Actually, I think I'm just going to cut one side off and form it and see how it goes. That way I have extra without having to do extra work if I need to weld it. So, alright, so I got, so far to this point, I've hand formed this with rubber mallet, body hammers, and a dolly. So now that I know I don't need that much as much as I had to achieve what I'm trying to do here, I cut an end off, and now it fits in between the hinges. So we're going to bend this over a little at a time, and then we're going to keep test fitting it. And then I've got some tucks right here, which means it needs to be shrunk there. But like I said, I don't have a shrinker. I suppose I could use some pliers, but this is my first attempt at making a small fender, a full fender. So let's learn together. They got a little bit of a valley in there from hitting it with the mallet. It's all good. It's our first attempt in learning. Alright, so like I said in previous episodes, I got a tight spot I got to work in. A lot of stuff in here, not a lot of real estate. So we got this bent up, and we'll smooth out the little roll that's in there, and we'll smooth out those tucks right there. So we'll lock those in so it's good and tight. Okay, so the plan is to build a fender. Here is the bottom flange. There's center. I think we just need to bend it over a little bit more, and we'll be there. And then we can, where's center? There we go. Bend it over a little bit more, and then we can lop off that end at that line. So I think we're getting there, bud. I do believe so. So let's get to working on this some more.